see if I can get this thing to work. All right, we're here to talk about our inner kid. My inner kid wants to go home right now. I don't know about you. So a couple months ago, I walked into the Dancing Brush paint studio. I don't know if you guys know where that is, not very far away. And as a wearer of many hats, I had so much work to do that day. Emails, I think we had a Ways to Goose board meeting coming up that I was not prepared for. And I don't know, so much work. I shut down a shop in Bremerton a couple years ago, and there's still things that need to be done. And the amount of work that goes on, the amount of like spiraling that goes on can get a little overwhelming. And so I had done some of this work and decided I need to get out of my routine and my life for, maybe an hour. And on Thursdays, my mom watches my daughter, and my daughter and I are kind of attached at the hip and have been forever, thanks to COVID. And so I get these Thursdays and I dropped her off, and I'm heading here to 5 once a month to work and get some solid work done. But I had carved out this time, told no one I was doing this, taking this little escape. And so felt really proud of myself for just showing up at Dancing Brush, my big winter coat, my bags and everything, and I go inside. Little doorbell rings, and the lady's really so sweet, and she shows me, this is what happens at Dancing Brush Studios. You get to, pick your little spot. She showed me how you take your, you only need this much paint, and they have all this little system set up, and it's really sweet. And I was really grateful to be there, but I'm not a ceramic person. I don't paint. It was a little outside of my comfort zone. Plus all of the guilt of just feeling like you have so much other stuff to be doing. Like, God, what are you doing here? But I got myself set up, and she says, okay, the next step is you get to go around and pick out like what you're gonna make today or what you're gonna paint today. And it was Christmas time, or like leading up to the holidays, so there's bustling and people coming in to get their holiday orders and a lot of inspiration and cool stuff that people had been making. And so I was like, okay, I'll go check it out. And there's kitty cats you can paint, and faces and picture frames and stuff. And I started getting a little overwhelmed. Like, okay, maybe I'll make something for someone for Christmas. I'm like, no, I'm here to like work on myself, which feels really hard to do, but I'm just gonna go for it. Okay, what do I want to do? And I kept going back to practical things, like, okay, I could use that vase in my studio, and that would be practical, and it just started feeling overwhelming. And I walked down the aisles, and there's so many choices, and I was about to leave. I was done. It was not fun anymore, and the mom guilt and the work guilt and everything else is just piling up too much. So I was about to get ready to pack up, and I just heard that voice in my head, like, just try, just give it one more shot. So go in the bathroom, wash my face. I'm like, okay, I can do this. And I remembered there was this little mushroom in the front window that had caught my eye on the way in. I'm like, okay, what is that even? They checked it out, and it's like a lantern. You put a little candle in it, and it's like, okay, but what is that for? There's no point. But this like little spark in me was excited, and it was like, that looks fun. I used to like mushrooms when I was a little kid, and creatures, and and so I listened. I kind of followed that thread, and I sat myself down with this little mushroom and started painting, and I felt really frivolous. It's like, oh, but I did it anyway. And I think I even took a picture of myself. I should have brought it, but I was like, look, I'm here, I did it. I should be so proud of myself. And I remember working on it for wasn't even there a full hour. And I left feeling like a different person. And I think that's why I decided to talk about this today, is because that little shift, that little decision I made to just stay and like listen and follow that has had a really big impact on me. In not very much time. And it's like work I had been doing, foundational work to even get me to that point, but I think it's a decision I can make over and over again now, a little more easily. I felt seen in that moment and heard in a way that I think I'd been seeking out from other people, probably my whole life. And specifically that one piece of art that I was working on, and I still am. It's still down there. I'm not done. It was the first time I had ever made anything creative that I didn't want to go show someone, or I wasn't doing it to impress anyone, or I didn't want to talk about it and get like, don't you think this is cool what I'm doing? Like, there was none of that. And I don't know about you or anyone here today, but I don't ever really do that kind of creative work without any kind of ego in it. And I think it was a pivotal moment for me. Something in me was finally like, you see me, like, you are here and I'm here and this is all we need. And so I want to share that with you a little bit today. There's crayons on your tables and some colorful paper. And I just encourage you, like, this little silly painting moment for me was something that I used to dig into that, but I think crayons are a good representation because most of us have experience with them at some point when we were really little. And I noticed these ones don't actually smell like the crayons I remember using, but maybe if you scratch them and use them, they will. But doodle and like draw. I don't know what you used to doodle and draw when you were in school to distract yourself, but feel free to play.
I know, right?
So why do this work? There's 3 things. I think it's really important. I think like working on self is important. It's just one of my core beliefs. It's pretty simple and it has a big impact. Couple notes. I am not a therapist. This is kind of like therapy work going into inner child work, but I'm a mindset coach and I have experience in therapy and 12-step work and a lot of foundational work. But as a coach, I see this kind of work as moving forward, and it's not about digging into our past so much as it is about setting ourselves up for what we want our lives to be. And it's not about making excuses. Some of our inner children, like, they might be shopaholics, they might be whiners, they might be baby. Like, it's not about like coddling that in ourselves or in other people, so much as just listening and paying attention. And I also hear the word reparenting come up a lot with inner child work, and I don't really like to go there because to me it's not about our parents so much as like what we can do moving forward. It's not about what did or didn't happen to us, but just noticing and using the emotional intelligence we have now to kind of look at what happened to us in the past. So be kind and gentle. Another thing I like to think about when I am working with people on inner child work is that it's fluid. There's not like, for me personally, there wasn't one moment in my life when something happened that I always go back to as like a 2-year-old. Although my sister being born when I was 2, I think had a pretty big impact on my life. But there's times when it's a teenager that is like, I don't want to get up and go to school today. I don't want to go talk to people. But it's different, and it can be different every day. So just a gentle reminder that every day can be different. And on the way here, I was thinking about my daughter's 4 and her car seat's in the back of the car. And even when she's not in it, I can still see it in my rearview mirror. And a lot of times she is driving the car from the back seat, like literally. And I think it's a really good metaphor for us. Like sometimes the emotions that come up and we get triggered and we're so mad at someone like taking too long in line that it's not really like doesn't match the circumstances, but the emotions are so real. And I think it's an easy thing for me now that I've been practicing this to just remember, like, I might not be driving these emotions as a grown-up, but there is a kid who has some really strong feelings about this stuff. So there are things I do as a parent. I love on my kid. It's kind of a no-brainer. I pay attention to her. I try to not have my phone out a lot. I'm actually off social media now, and when she's talking, I try to look at her in her eyes and ask a lot of questions. I was a curious kid, and so is she, and it lights me up when I can get her to think about stuff instead of just kind of like feeding her. And my husband and I both work really hard to keep her life really simple so that she can explore and be her instead of being, taken here and there or bombarded with stimulation. There are things I would never do as a parent, but these are things I do to myself every day. And I think this is where I've been learning so much about myself, just being a mom. Anybody here wake up and check their email or social media? And I would never do that to her, right? Like, I would never say, okay, get up, come on, you're late on this. Everybody's waiting for you to get back to them on that. As a founder of a nonprofit and an executive director and business owner, I'm always working, I'm always on, and I can't shut that off. I would never do that to her. Again, like, we value naps in our house and downtime and togetherness, and that's not something I give to myself. I don't ignore her. I can't. Biologically, I don't think I'm capable of doing that, but I do ignore my inner messaging quite a bit. And I think the most important piece for me is that I'm constantly talking negative to myself. And that's really hard to even say out loud because, I know better than that. Like, in my mind, I know how damaging that can be, but it's pretty subtle and it's a pretty constant drip of, you're late, they aren't gonna like that, not good enough. I mean, we all have it, maybe to some extent. But I would never do that to her. So again, I think these are the reasons why I'm here, and I wanted to just dig a little bit deeper into each one today. It's important because I think we all have an inner kid at some point. We've all had bumps and bruises and scrapes along the way. I don't think every single person has capital T trauma, but I think we all do have scars and things that happen to us at certain points when we just didn't have capacity to understand it or to deal or to talk about it. I mean, probably things happened before we even could talk, right? And I think it's important because neglect over time can be pretty devastating. I volunteer at my daughter's preschool a couple days a week, and we are in Illahee State Park. It's really cold and wet there this time of year, but we bundle up and we drove into a school and noticed there was a lot of trees down one day, a lot more light. It's really dark in the forest in the middle of January. And these trees had been fallen by the park rangers and because they were dying inside. And I just thought this was such a good metaphor because we had no idea these trees were sick. I think I and a lot of people I know walk around like we've got our act together, and we have to because that's how we show up for each other as adults. But there can be a lot going on inside, and if we don't think about it, talk about it, connect with it, it can just grow over time. And it's pretty interesting. I'd never seen something like this before, but the insides are like literally spongy and just gets you thinking a little bit. It takes time and it doesn't take time. I love how a lot of the things I do as a coach are talking about paradoxes. So this kind of work, I think you have to have long haul patience, just like parenting, just like any creative act. We're kind of in it knowing that we got to commit for the long haul. But it's really just made up of daily decisions and choices to like where are we going to put our attention. And one of the simplest things I think we can do is take time to think about our inner kid as someone we want to have a relationship with. And it doesn't happen overnight. But this book, The Artist's Way, does anybody here know The Artist's Way? I think my parents gave it to me when I was 18 years old, and I was like, what the heck is this? And I've read it so many times. And there are two tools that Julia Cameron, the author, presents, and one is the morning pages and one are the artist states. And the morning pages are awesome. I religiously use that tool and I highly recommend it. But the artist states I've done in fits and starts. And it's always been like, okay, I should have an artist state. Okay, put it on my to-do list. And what should it be? Okay, what would Julia Cameron do? Or what do the creative people in my life do? where do I want to get as a creative person? Okay, I'll go, do these things that are kind of like out here. And I've never really connected and made a habit of it. And I beat myself up over that too. It's like, why can't you just be more like Julia? And the moment in the dancing brush when I kind of had my little turnaround was the moment that these things clicked, because it was no longer about me just like going out and trying to find something to do to check off the box of did I go on an artist date this week, but it was turning to my inner kid and saying, what do you want? And I don't think that very often people have turned to me in my life, and maybe you can resonate with this, and said, what do you need? What do you want to do? I have all the time in the world for you. Like, let's go. And it clicked. It's like, okay, if I can spend one 15-minute break a week paying that much attention to myself, so much else calms down. These emotional triggers that I have at home, like, why am I picking up dirty socks in the same place every freaking morning? Like, come on. Like the things that, it's just like, I have the emotional, like, firepower in me of a dragon, and I don't need to be aiming that at people, They didn't do anything. It's not about them. So when I can turn this little bit of gentle attention on myself, I've noticed I can soothe all of the bumps in my day so much quicker. It's just like when Cece is throwing a tantrum. She's 4, so she's demanding my attention so strongly now. It's so different than 3. I can't tell you. But when I can just take a moment and turn towards her and say, what do you need? I see you. What do you need? It calms her little nervous system down, and she can kind of figure it out and tell me what she needs. And so I highly recommend an artist date every now and then. And it can be simple. Other ways to connect to inner kid, I think just asking, like I said, like taking some time. I'm thinking in this group there's a lot of people who have a weekly meditation or yoga practice or some kind of thing that you do to calm your nerves. And if you can set an intention at that time to just ask, I think that's a really great inroad. Also, our physical sensations, I like the expression that our bodies are a map to the divine, and we can kind of think about this knot in my stomach when I'm walking into a meeting, like what is that about? And maybe because we have to do the adulting, we can't do it in that moment, but we can, make a mental note to come back to that and say, oh, I was just really scared, and what was I scared about? And just kind of following that lead and get to the core of it. And usually for me, what I'm most afraid of is like something that will never happen, or it actually doesn't matter. Like, so what if I miss the deadline? Like, really, in the big picture, when I'm on my deathbed, am I going to be really worried about, how far I advanced that career path, or how genuinely I was able to show up at every point along the way? And I think our physical senses can really lead us there. And I like to think of our inner kid as a little wild animal. You can't just go up to animals, even domesticated animals, and demand anything, right? You have to kind of be in your power and step back and let them come to you. And I read a story about a guy who was not into kids and was trying to work on inner child stuff, and he really liked dogs. And so he started treating his inner wounds as a rescue puppy. And and he was like, this creature deserves love and praise for being brave and taking care of the house and protecting me and snarling when it thinks that I'm in trouble. And so he was able to connect more that way instead of to something that didn't quite fit. And eye contact, going back to a moment in actual therapy for me, I had someone convince me to stand in front of the mirror and like look at myself. And I don't know about you guys, but eye contact with other humans is hard enough. And sitting in front of a mirror for more than a couple seconds and looking at yourself, so much came up. And I still can't do it without crying. But, you know, I see my mom. I see myself as a child. I see and am seen at the same time. And I think that's a super easy, kind of hard, but it's a simple way to make that connection if it's feeling like you don't know where to start. And the third reason for this work is just what impact it has. I don't think it's all about like us just doing the work and becoming better humans, but having impact on our work, our access to our own creative powers and our productivity. That's always a bonus. Feeling fully integrated, I think, eases some of the distraction of those hot emotions and lets us actually like go forward towards where we want to be without some of that baggage holding us back. And the most important thing, I think, is just that it allows us to have better connection with other people. Getting back to the dirty socks on the floor, I have a picture of my husband when he was a little kid at the ocean, and we met in high school, broke up for a little bit, back together. We've known each other for so long. We know everything about each other and every trigger point. And I remember pulling that photo out and putting it somewhere I could see pretty regularly, and the tension or the fights or anything that we'd get in, if I could find that photo, the heat just like would melt away, because I was seeing like, this is someone who has only so many tools, and I'm someone who has only so many tools, and we're like trying to make this work, and really kids just want to connect too. And so if I can just like see the people in my life without all of the turmoil and the defenses we put up, the walls, the things we try to use to get through life, and just get down to the bare bones again, it not only makes me feel like I can see them better and show up better for them, but I feel seen and heard too, and it's just a cycle that seems to only go up. And along those same lines, I don't know if any of you know this book, another favorite of mine, but I don't know if it's the third or fourth or second agreement, don't take anything personal. When I first read this book, again, I loved everything about it except for this one. I was like, I'm sensitive, like everything, I take everything personal, and I was proud of that. And it made me feel empathetic, you know, I can connect, and everything has meaning. But when I start to think about the things that happen that are out of my control anyway, as not really having anything to do with me, I can show up and help. I can be of service. I can contribute to situations instead of always be on the defensive. And that is so empowering. So on the back of your little doodles, if you can think of anything that you would want to say to your inner kid, or that your inner kid would want to say to you today, I would encourage you just to jot it down, something short. Could just be, I love you, I see you. Take that with you, and maybe pull it out later this week if you can make some time for yourself. And along the same lines of what Rachel was saying earlier about standing up and moving. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to Rachel as I'm wrapping things up. This is really amazing to be able to be here with you today, and to Elena for providing the shell to hold us in. But Cece came up to me this morning. She got up earlier than she was supposed to, so I didn't have as much time to get ready. But she said, Mama, let's do our hug. And we try to remind each other, like, hey, did you hug yourself today? And she came up to me and reminded me today of all days, which meant a lot. And so we did our little hug. So I just want to ask you, when you're done writing your note, if everyone can just close your eyes so no one's embarrassed, and just take a minute and really, like, give yourself a hug. And maybe a little squeeze. And I think it's a really good way to start the day. So thank you.